On today's video, we're going to talk about ham radio for overlanders, how to find frequencies to communicate on, and hopefully make first contact. Coming up.
A bad day.
Yeah! I'm Drew, and this is Evergreen Overland. On this channel, we help overlanders outfit themselves for adventure through doing gear reviews, vehicle modification tutorials, and cooking tasty camp meals to share around the campfire. What you see down here is my freshly installed Yause FTM-400XDR dual band, dual VFO ham radio. If you're interested, there's a link you can follow above me over to the install of this radio into the Tundra. This is my first foray into ham radio. I just wanted to show you guys my setup. Let's go ahead and jump into the garage and talk about some of the very basics of ham radio. All right, ham radio. Well, let's give a completely novice explanation of what ham radio is and how an overlander might use the ham radio system while they're out exploring. If you already know almost anything about ham, this might not be the video for you, as I'm just kind of learning all this stuff as I go and trying to convey it to you guys to help me retain the knowledge a little bit, but also just if you're interested, this is going to be a good place to start off. Now, if I get anything drastically wrong in this, please correct me in the comment section below, and I will do my best to address those discrepancies in future videos. Ham is just kind of a general term to refer to amateur radio operators. In my mind, it's used for people who have obtained a certification allowing them to legally transmit on specific frequencies. There are definitely frequencies out there open to just general public. I've used some of them. CB is one that I've dabbled with a little bit back in the day. Also the FRS radios. I believe that primarily refers to your push-to-talk little handheld units that you would play around with in your backyard with your friends or whatever. That's enough about those other radio styles because today's video is primarily about ham. Your opening, beginning, starting out level is called a technician's course. I believe it's like $10 to go and take it. They're probably doing it online with COVID now and all that stuff, but it's totally attainable to do. Go online, find the flashcards, learn the stuff. It's, you know, a multiple choice test. If I could pass the test, I promise you could pass the test. And in passing the test for me, definitely didn't mean I understood the questions and the answers in the test. It just meant that I had done the kind of muscle memory flashcard thing and equated the question with the proper answer enough to answer enough multiple choice questions. Your mileage may vary. I'm not a good test taker. I knew that if I really did want to get into ham, I needed to get that certification and then go through the processes on my own time, super hands-on, super visual of understanding kind of what it all meant and how to use it. There's definitely some responsibility with this. You have to be careful about which bands you are and are not allowed to transmit on, because you can get yourself in trouble with the FCC if you're transmitting on the improper frequencies. But seriously, if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. That's what some of these videos are for. I'm just kind of going through the process and showing you guys how I'm figuring this stuff out for myself. Hey, if you're liking this video so far, throw a comment in the comment section below. Let me know you're fired up to maybe take some steps into getting into ham radio yourself. With ham radio, you tend to be able to get a much clearer signal and sound, and you can usually reach out a lot farther than some of these other radio styles because it gives you the ability to legally transmit with a lot more power than you're allowed to with the other radios. It's great for vehicle-to-vehicle communication if you go out with people who have their ham licenses. It allows you to monitor the area you're going into just to be notified if there's any conditions in front of you. Maybe somebody's stuck, maybe somebody needs help along the path that you might be traveling. And with the addition of APRS, which some radios do have and you can get dedicated radios for, you even have the availability to monitor weather stations, send SMS text messages, emails, and you can even GPS track yourself, uploading your coordinates to somebody you might want to keep in the loop and have follow you along like a loved one at home when you're out on an adventure. As with learning anything new, there's going to be terms that come up you just want to familiarize yourself with. I wanted to put them in layman's terms as I understand them. Types of radios. So handheld. Handheld is just a type of radio. It's just like your little push-to-talk, little walkie-talkie looking radios, but in a ham format. When you see the term mobile radios used, that's basically what I have installed into the truck. It's a unit that, unlike a handheld that probably is going to have a pretty limited amount of power output, you can put out a lot more power in a mobile unit installed in a vehicle or in a quad or something like that, and just allows you to reach out a lot farther. And then I don't remember what the radios are called that would be like installed at your house or something like that. I know a lot of people call it shacks. I'm sure that's where Radio Shack came from, but your ham shack is where you'd have your permanently mounted base system. That might be something I choose to geek out on down the road, but for now we're just talking about practical usage inside vehicles for when you're out exploring. Simplex is a term used for radio-to-radio communications. So that would be you communicating with your radio to another radio, either a mobile or a handheld or a station directly on a frequency, just communicating one-to-one. Simplex is limited to line of sight, your antenna height can affect it, obstacles in your way, all that kind of stuff. As a generalization, what I'm finding is handhelds can operate at their power output for a couple of miles, while mobile radios like I have in my rig can operate between 3 and 10 miles, but there's a lot of factors that go into that. Repeaters are another term. Basically, it's a stationary radio that's used to receive and transmit your signal out farther, repeating it to a greater distance. Repeaters are usually stationed high up, high antennas, backup power systems, all that kind of stuff, and they can typically relay your message 25 miles plus in any direction. And that means if you've got a radio in the center, you're 25 miles away from it to the west, and your buddy's 25 miles away from it to the east, that repeater, in theory, should be able to carry your transmission across, bouncing it to your buddy 50 miles away. There are even repeaters that are hooked up to the internet that realistically, once your transmission goes into that repeater, from what I understand, it can distribute to a whole bunch of other internet linked repeaters throughout the world. There are over 21,000 documented repeater stations throughout the US and Canada alone, making ham radio just one of the most robust systems around to communicate with. Now, bands. Bands in ham radio is just referring to a chunk of the radio frequencies that you can or cannot transmit on depending on your level of certification. For instance, my Yause radio is a dual band radio that's primarily designed to talk to 2-meter and 70-centimeter bands. Those are just two of the many bands out there, but they're two of the most common ones that people in the off-roading, overlanding, and just general ham radio world use. And with bands, it's just referring to a chunk of the radio frequency spectrum that you either can or cannot transmit on depending on legalities and certifications. The 2-meter band spans from 144 to 148 megahertz, and I'm primarily going to be using 144.1 to 148 because that 144 is used for CW, which is basically Morse code, and that's just not something I'm going to get into when I'm out on the trail. 2 meters is a VHF band, which is very high frequencies, and it typically can travel a pretty long distance, but has some trouble moving through obstructions. The 70-centimeter band spans from 420 to 450 megahertz and is completely open. There's no CW in there, and it usually is good for shorter distances where you need to pass through obstructions a little bit more. 70 centimeters is considered UHF, which is ultra high frequency, and you see a lot of that used in densely populated cities with buildings because it just tends to penetrate obstructions a little better. I definitely recommend you get online and go to the AARL website. It's just the regulatory, association of amateur radios, whatever, and print out this frequency chart to have on you so you know the bands and frequencies you're trying to hit. Another term you'll hear is VFO, and that refers to variable frequency oscillators. You'll find that in different types of radios. For instance, my radio is the dual band, dual VFO. All that really means is that it has two different bands that it's designed to work with, but with the VFO function, it can monitor two different bands coming into your radio at a single time, allowing you to maybe monitor a repeater as well as a simplex channel. Last term I'm going to talk about APRS. I believe it stands for Auto Packet Reporting Service or System, one of the two. And that is just a way to transmit real-time tactical data of a message or a location that you want to somebody. I'm not going to get into it right now. I'm just starting to grasp how that whole system works, and that will be a standalone, if not multiple videos in the future. Now, there's a lot of information about this online. There's a lot of people really willing to help. A couple of places that I got some really good information, which is Snail Trail 4x4, which is a podcast. They talk about amateur radio quite a bit in the off-roading world. Their other website they have is myoffroadradio.com. Go talk to those guys. I also looked up a website that really put it in good layman's terms if you're more of a read and understand person. Talonsurvival.com, Talon. They just did a really good job of putting it in base level terms in a way that you can understand. So you're going to get your technician license. You're going to get a radio, you're going to install it, you're going to want to start playing around with it, and you're going to hear the word programming. I thought in my mind I was going to get one of these programming systems and it would just already be complete with all the frequencies for simplex and all the repeaters repeaters and everything else loaded into it for my area that I was just going to download into my system and be good to go. That's not it. That's not how it works. I'm sure there's people out there who will tell you differently and they can download whole geographic areas onto your thing. I'm not there yet, and if that's how it works, cool, good on you. But the way I understand it is it's just a computer-based way to do mass data entry. So rather than having to turn your dials or mash your little buttons and save and go through all those kind of, clunky prompts for saving specific frequencies into your unit, it just gives you the capability to do all of that on a computer and then do like a mass data import through either the proper cable or in some cases an SD card like I'm going to do in the future into your radio, so that then you have the frequencies that you want to program in there set and ready to go. Basically, unless you've got a buddy who really knows what he's doing or you want to pay somebody online to do it for you, you kind of have to go through, do the research, and find the radio frequencies that you want to program into your radio for the areas you're going to want to use it in. That's also going to be a video in this series. I'm going to go through and show you guys the steps I'm taking to program my radio. But if you want to do some of the research in your general area, start on sites or apps like repeaterbook.com. You can go to the AARL. I searched in Google and went ham radio repeaters, Snohomish County, where I live in Washington. Definitely just start playing around on those websites, playing around online, looking at different repeaters in your area or areas you're going to be exploring, and just kind of familiarize yourself with the search function of how to find those locations. Like I said, I'm going to show you guys the process as I go along of programming my radio, but for now, just start looking around. And if you have your technician certification or higher, you have your ham radio set up and in your hand, and you're feeling confident enough that you are transmitting on an approved frequency, I encourage you to dive in, set your frequency, mash that mic button, and attempt to make first contact like I'm going to do right now for my first time. I hope I get somebody on the other line, but we'll see. KJ7FZU reaching out for a radio check. KJ7FZU reaching out for a mic check. KJ7FZU reaching out for a radio check. Well, there you go. I reached out, I pulled the trigger. I didn't get a response back, but that's okay. It was kind of nerve-wracking doing it. I don't know why. It's just something new and you just want to make sure you're doing it right. But even though I didn't get a response, exciting nonetheless. It could just be the nature of I'm kind of pulled in my backyard, surrounded by the house. I'd probably get better reception up front. But for tonight, I think I'm going to call it. Hey, I really appreciate you guys watching the video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope that, if you've been interested in ham and you want to jump into it, you'll follow me along as I go through kind of learning the whole system and seeing how it operates. But if you like this video, please hit the like button. Throw a comment down below if you have anything to input, just have any questions. If you like the video and you want to be notified when I put out a new video, please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying my hardest right now to put out a new video every week. Definitely, if you want to follow me in other formats, you can follow me over on Instagram at Evergreen Overland, as well as the website evergreenoverland.com. You can go there, fill out the contact form, send me your email. Eventually, I'm going to be building that site out and offering specials and discounts and all that kind of stuff. It'll eventually come, and it'll be nice to have your email in an email list. I'm not going to spam you, but it'll be great. Well, I encourage you, if this is something you're interested in, start doing the research, follow along with me, start diving into it. It really is entertaining and pretty cool what it can do. I appreciate you watching. Thanks again for watching. Have a good day.